Welcome to our deep dive into Hanya Yanagihara's A Little Life. You know, this book has become a bit of a phenomenon. People seem to either love it or find it really, really challenging.
It's definitely sparked a lot of discussion, which makes it perfect for taking a closer look.
For sure. And at the heart of it all, we have these four friends figuring out life in New York City. But the story really centers on Jude St. Francis and his past, a past filled with trauma that continues to affect him. Before we wander too far into the emotional maze of this book, let's talk a little about Hanya Yanagihara herself. What's interesting is that she doesn't give those easy resolutions in her stories, you know, the kind we often see in fiction.
Yanagihara seems to want to show suffering in its most raw form, which can definitely be jarring for readers.
It really makes you realize that A Little Life isn't just a story you sit back and read. It's an experience that you kind of wrestle with. So for anyone who hasn't read it yet, let me give you a spoiler-free idea of what's in store. We follow these four friends, Jude, Willem, JB, and Malcolm, as they navigate life and love and careers. But the story keeps circling back to Jude's past and how it continues to color his present. And here's where things get really interesting. The story isn't told in a straightforward way.
You mean the nonlinear structure?
Exactly.
That structure actually mirrors the fragmented nature of trauma and memory. It forces the reader to piece together Jude's story in the same way that he has to confront his own past. It's almost as if the reader is feeling those emotional echoes of trauma along with Jude.
That's a really perceptive way to put it. It makes you think about how much the past shapes our view of the present, you know, with all its scattered pieces. Let's talk about these characters for a bit. Jude is clearly at the center of everything. His childhood experiences, which we uncover gradually, have left him with these deep scars that affect every aspect of his life, his relationships, how he sees himself, even his ability to trust.
And yet, despite all that, Jude finds a kind of peace and security in his friendships, especially his bond with Willem. Their relationship, it goes beyond typical friendship. You can really see the power of chosen family and how platonic love can actually be a powerful force for healing.
It really makes you rethink those neat categories we try to fit love into, doesn't it? And then there's JB and Malcolm. They add their own unique dynamic to this group of friends. JB brings this sharp wit and ambition to the group, and Malcolm offers this quieter, more thoughtful presence.
Each one of these characters, along with supporting characters like Harold, kind of a father figure to Jude and Andy, his doctor, they all highlight the impact of different types of love and support on someone struggling with a traumatic past.
It makes you realize that healing doesn't happen in isolation. It often takes a network of connections, each offering a different kind of lifeline. What about you? What initially drew you to A Little Life? Was there a character or a specific theme that really spoke to you?
For me, it was that raw exploration of pain and trauma, how Yanagihara really dives into the depths of human suffering without trying to soften the blow. It's not an easy journey, but there's a kind of beauty in how she faces these harsh realities head on.
It definitely isn't an easy read, and I think that's part of what makes it so captivating and for some people so hard to digest. Let's break down some of the themes and symbolism that are woven throughout the story. Pain and trauma, they're right at the forefront. A Little Life doesn't hold back from depicting self-harm and mental health struggles in a way that can be unsettling to some readers.
The book really stirred up controversy because of the way Yanagihara portrays these sensitive issues with such honesty. She forces us to face this harsh reality that for some, survival means living with this constant undercurrent of pain and figuring out ways to exist alongside it.
It's a stark contrast to stories that neatly wrap up trauma, offering simple solutions and happy endings. But life isn't always like that, is it? Trauma can leave lasting marks, and the path to healing, it's rarely straightforward or predictable.
I have to ask, have you ever come across a book that challenged your views on healing and resilience in such a powerful way?
I think A Little Life really highlights how love and friendship, while essential, can't always erase the wounds of the past. Yanagihara captures that balance so well.
It reminds us that love can be a strong force for good, but it isn't some magical cure. There's a profound realism and a recognition that healing is this ongoing process, this constant back and forth between the past and the present.
Welcome back to our deep dive into A Little Life. In part one, we talked about the complexities of love and friendship when facing trauma. But now I want to dig into some specific scenes and characters that really highlight those dynamics.
It's interesting how Yanagihara isn't afraid to show those tough and sometimes disturbing events, especially when it comes to Jude's past. What are your thoughts on how those scenes add to the overall story?
Well, one scene that I always think about is when we learn about Jude's early experiences with Brother Luke. It's a pivotal moment in the book, where you truly grasp just how much Jude has suffered and the lasting impact of that abuse. What's striking is that Yanagihara doesn't try to sensationalize or exploit these events. She presents them in this very matter-of-fact way that just underscores their devastating impact.
It's like she's holding up a mirror to the uncomfortable truth of child abuse, and she doesn't shield the reader from its brutal consequences. It forces you to confront your own empathy and the limits of understanding someone else's pain.
Right. And then there's the scene where Jude first meets Willem, this chance meeting that turns into one of the most important relationships in his life. It's this little spark of hope in the midst of all that darkness. It shows the power of human connection.
What's so interesting about their relationship is that it defies easy labels. It's more than friendship, but not exactly romantic love either. It speaks to that need for deep emotional intimacy and how healing can come from the most unexpected places.
It also challenges our ideas of what a healthy relationship is supposed to be. Their bond is incredibly protective and codependent. It blurs the lines between love and this need to fix or save the other person. It makes you wonder if that kind of intense devotion, while seemingly selfless, can also become a weight or even hinder true healing.
That's a good point. It raises the question of whether true healing requires a certain level of self-reliance and the ability to find peace within yourself instead of relying solely on others for support.
Absolutely. And that leads us to another complex character, Harold, Jude's adoptive father. He represents that more traditional parental love, providing stability and unwavering support. But even his love can't quite reach the depths of Jude's pain.
Harold shows the limits of even the most well-intentioned love. He desperately wants to heal Jude, but he ultimately can't erase the scars of his past. It reminds us that some wounds go so deep that they might never fully heal, no matter how much love is poured into them.
It's heartbreaking, but also very real. And then there's JB, the friend and sometimes rival who represents a more abrasive and self-centered kind of love. He can be critical and insensitive, yet he's fiercely loyal in his own way.
JB is such a fascinating character because he challenges the idea that love always has to be gentle and nurturing. His love is tough, demanding, and often expressed through sarcasm and almost a playful cruelty. But it's love nonetheless, and it pushes Jude to confront his own limits and strive for success.
It reminds us that the people who challenge us the most are often the ones who care about us deeply, even if their ways of showing it are unconventional or even hurtful sometimes.
And let's not forget Andy, Jude's doctor. He offers a more professional and detached kind of care. He provides a safe space for Jude to explore his trauma and gives him crucial medical and emotional support.
Andy's presence really underscores how important it is to seek professional help when dealing with trauma and mental health issues. It reminds us that healing often takes a multifaceted approach, combining personal support with guidance from experts.
It highlights the fact that vulnerability and seeking help are not weaknesses, but actually brave acts of self-preservation.
So we've looked at these different characters and their roles in Jude's life, but I think it's important to discuss the book's portrayal of self-harm and mental health struggles. These are sensitive topics, and Yanagihara's unflinching approach has definitely generated a lot of discussion and debate.
It speaks to her commitment to showing the realities of trauma even when they're hard to face. Some readers found these depictions too graphic or disturbing. They felt it was exploiting suffering for shock value.
But I think it's crucial to remember that Yanagihara's intention isn't to glorify or sensationalize these issues. She wants to make us see the devastating impact of trauma on the mind and recognize that healing isn't always a simple or predictable path.
It's about confronting the difficult and often brutal nature of survival, how people deal with immense pain, and how complex it is to navigate mental health challenges. It's a reminder that these struggles are real, and they deserve our attention and empathy and understanding, not judgment or dismissal.
It also highlights the need for more awareness and support for those struggling with self-harm and mental health. There's this sense of urgency in Yanagihara's writing, a plea for us to recognize the profound impact of these issues and advocate for more compassionate and effective care.
It's a call to action, a challenge to move past our discomfort and engage with these tough subjects in a meaningful way.
Now I want to shift gears a bit and talk about how the book has been received by critics. A Little Life has been both praised and criticized for its honest portrayal of trauma and suffering. Some critics felt it was too intense, that the constant pain was just too much and emotionally draining.
I can understand that perspective. It's not an easy book to read, and it can trigger certain individuals. It asks a lot of the reader emotionally. a willingness to face difficult feelings and sit with that discomfort.
But then again, many critics have applauded the book's honesty and emotional depth. They argue that it's a necessary and powerful exploration of human suffering, and that Yanagihara's direct approach creates a more genuine and impactful experience for the reader.
They see it as a testament to the strength of the human spirit, a reminder that even in the face of incredible pain, there's still room for love, connection, and moments of grace.
It's amazing how this book has sparked such different reactions. It reflects a wider conversation in society about how we deal with trauma and suffering in art and literature. Some people think art should offer comfort and escape, while others believe it should challenge us, provoke us, make us confront difficult truths.
It raises the question of what we're looking for in literature. Do we want comfort and reassurance, or do we want stories that push us out of our comfort zones and help us understand the human experience better?
I think A Little Life makes a strong case for the latter. It's a book that stays with you, that makes you think. And ultimately, I hope it makes you more compassionate, more understanding, more aware of the complexity of the world around you.
It demonstrates the power of literature to shed light on the darkest parts of human experience and inspire us to work towards a more just and caring world.
As we head into the last part of our deep dive, I'm curious to hear what you think about the lasting impact of the book. What stays with you the most about A Little Life?
For me, it's how Yanagihara captures the complexities of love and friendship. She shows us how love can be both a source of healing and a source of pain. It can be a lifeline, but it can also be a burden. And ultimately, it's a force that shapes us, defines us, and connects us in ways we may never fully grasp.
Welcome back to the final part of our deep dive into A Little Life. We've explored the characters and their relationships, the themes, and even how critics have responded to the book. Now it's time to kind of zoom out and think about the bigger picture, the wider impact of this powerful and sometimes really unsettling book.
What I find striking is how A Little Life has become more than just a novel. It's like a cultural phenomenon. It sparks so many conversations and debates about trauma, resilience, and the nature of love.
Yeah, it's definitely not a book that you just read and forget about. It stays with you, it makes you think, and maybe even re-examine your own beliefs and experiences.
And that's exactly what makes it so important. It forces us to face those uncomfortable truths about ourselves and the world around us. It pushes us to question what we think about healing and forgiveness and the limits of what humans can endure.
One thing that's really interesting about this book is how it explores the lasting power of the past. Jude's trauma, even though it's rooted in his childhood, continues to shape who he is. It affects his relationships, how he sees himself, his ability to experience joy and connect with others.
It makes you wonder, can we ever truly escape the shadows of our past? Or do those experiences become part of who we are?
It makes you think about the nature of healing. Is it about erasing the past or finding a way to incorporate it into who we are now and who we'll become?
And it also highlights the limits of love and friendship when dealing with deep trauma. While those connections offer comfort and support, they can't always fully heal those deepest wounds.
That's such an important point. It challenges that idea that love conquers all. It reminds us that healing is this intricate journey that often requires not just support from others, but also this deep inner process of facing your own pain.
It's in that inner process that we often discover the most profound insights and transformations. A Little Life encourages us to face not just the darkness within ourselves, but also the darkness that exists in the world.
It's a call for empathy, a plea to see the suffering of others and recognize the systems that contribute to inequality and injustice.
It reminds us that we all have a part to play in creating a more compassionate and just world.
Now, I want to go back to something we talked about earlier, the book's controversial reception. A Little Life has received both praise and criticism for the way it portrays trauma and suffering. Some critics felt it was too graphic, too much pain, saying it was excessive and emotionally draining.
I think those criticisms, while valid, miss what Yanagihara is trying to do. It's not about shocking or disturbing the reader. It's about showing the depths of human suffering, making us face the reality of trauma in its raw and complex form.
It's about acknowledging that suffering is a part of being human, and that by trying to avoid it to make it more palatable, we're actually diminishing the experiences of those who have gone through tremendous pain.
It's a call for honesty, for authenticity,
Yeah.
for a willingness to engage with the tougher parts of life without shying away from their impact.
And it also reminds us that even in the darkest moments, there are still those sparks of beauty, connection, and resilience. The book doesn't offer easy answers or simple solutions. It shows us a complicated and ultimately hopeful view of what it means to be human.
It reminds us that even when faced with unbelievable pain, there's still the capacity for love, for connection, for those little moments of grace. It's in those moments, those glimmers of light, that we find the strength to go on, to heal,